When the Galactic Council learned why human diplomatic guards brought no weapons to meetings, the revelation struck harder than any weapon could have. Delegates had long dismissed the behavior as symbolic, perhaps even naive, yet something about the humans' steady presence suggested a deeper truth. They stood at the edges of the chamber without armor, without tools, without even the faintest hint of hesitation, as though the vast political weight around them carried no threat at all. That calmness unsettled the more observant species. It looked practiced, not accidental. It felt earned, not inherited. And as new information reached the Council's analysts, quietly, discreetly, urgently, the atmosphere shifted. The chamber's soft lights seemed to dim, the air felt heavier, and the assumptions that had rested comfortably within alien minds began to loosen. For the first time, the Council considered that humans might not be unarmed out of trust. They might be unarmed out of confidence. Varan Station orbited its pale blue gas giant like a polished marble suspended in stillness. Designed by 17 species, engineered for diplomacy, and decorated with obsessive symmetry, it represented the height of interstellar civility. Soft luminescent lines curved along the floors, guiding visitors through the labyrinth without ever raising anxiety. Every angle was intentional. Every sound was controlled. Every panel hummed at the exact frequency known to lower heart rate in most delegates. The Grand Convergence Hall stood at the station's center, its ceiling rising higher than any species actually required. Tiered seating wrapped the oval chamber like a quiet amphitheater, each platform lined with floating data panes ready to display neutral facts and sanitized truths. In the center lay the negotiation floor, smooth, pristine, unblemished by anything so uncivilized as conflict. Archivist Speaker Relthor of the Verini presided over it all. Tall, silver-scaled, and confident to a fault, he considered himself a guardian of logic. His frilled mantle rose and fell with controlled breaths, each movement deliberate, each gesture calculated to express superiority without appearing rude. His authority was built on numbers, protocols, and the certainty that order always prevailed. He believed humans were the exception that proved the rule. Today, as Elias Mercer, the human representative, crossed the threshold, Relthor observed him with clinical suspicion. Elias walked with unhurried steps, wearing the same dark, crisp uniform every human diplomat favored, neither flashy nor militaristic, simply functional. 2 unarmed guards followed him. No holsters. No tools. No visible defense mechanisms. No sense in Relthor's view. Species across the gallery shifted in mild interest. A Syroxian analyst tapped 2 chitin fingers together. An Andari luminary glowed a cautious yellow. A Krith warrior, massive, armored, born from a lineage of predators, glanced at the humans and dismissed them entirely. Elias took his seat with quiet efficiency. His guards moved behind him, standing at ease, their attention sweeping the room with gentle precision. Relthor's frill rose. "Representative Mercer," he said, voice polite but edged. "Your guards appear minimally equipped today." Elias answered with calm neutrality. "They appear exactly as intended." A ripple of soft amusement drifted through the chamber. The humans did not react. And that, more than anything, unsettled the room. Relthor activated a large hovering hologram. It unfolded into a cascade of charts, biological data, reflex benchmarks, comparative stats from dozens of species. The archivist paced slowly, as though lecturing a group of inattentive students. "Let us address the ongoing breach of protocol," he announced. "Human diplomatic guards consistently refuse standard armament. This behavior contradicts every statistical model we maintain regarding safety, risk, and biological limitations." The Syroxian delegate chirred in amusement. Relthor enlarged a chart displaying species reflex speeds. Humans ranked near the lower middle. "Your neural transmission speed," Relthor continued, "lags behind the Krith by 39% and behind the Andari by 23%. Your musculature lacks specialized density. You possess no claws, no armored plating, no sonic glands. Evolution favored improvisation instead of specialization, an ineffective strategy in structured environments." Subtle laughter rippled through the tiers. A Troluvian scribe murmured, Soft species. An Andari luminary hummed agreement. Relthor pressed on. By all measurable parameters, humans are unsuited for unarmed security roles. You rely on tools to compensate. Without them, your species is statistically at risk. Elias watched quietly. His guards remained motionless. Relthor interpreted silence as concession. We cannot allow a species to endanger diplomatic integrity through misplaced pride. Your guard's refusal to follow protocol is not bravery, Representative Mercer. It is biological overconfidence. The chamber murmured in approval. Elias merely blinked. And that blink unsettled Relthor more than laughter would have. Elias waited until the murmurs faded. Then he leaned forward slightly. Archivist Relthor, he said gently, may I ask a few questions for clarification? Relthor gestured with stiff formality. Proceed. Elias nodded toward the holographic charts. Your data evaluates human reaction speed, musculature, and defensive traits. All accurate? Impeccably, Relthor replied. We pride ourselves on rigorous analysis. Elias's tone remained neutral. And you believe these metrics define functional capability under unpredictable conditions? Relthor hesitated, only a fraction. They define biological limits. A soft pulse of bioluminescence flickered across the Andari scientist's crest. He leaned forward. Unless compensation exists outside measurable baselines. Relthor shot him an irritated glance. Elias continued unbothered. Your models account for controlled environments. Do they account for variable environments? Instability? Rapid shifts in threat vectors? Relthor frowned. Chaos is not a training model. It is a hazard. For humans, Elias said softly, it is both. A few delegates stopped breathing. Elias folded his hands. One more question, Archivist. How familiar are you with human early development? Relthor blinked. Development? The Andari murmured. He means childhood. Yes, Elias said. Childhood. Relthor's mantle twitched. What relevance could that possibly have to armed protocol? Elias answered with quiet clarity. Everything. The room stilled. Even the Krith warrior shifted his weight. Relthor's voice tightened. Explain. Elias smiled lightly. Part 5 will explain it for me. Relthor didn't understand the reference. The rest of the chamber would understand very soon. Relthor straightened, regaining his earlier stiffness. Very well, he said. If you insist there is logic behind your species' behavior, a demonstration will provide clarity. He tapped a command on his panel. The center of the floor split apart with soft hydraulic grace. Panels sank, rotated, and reassembled into a circular platform surrounded by shimmering sensor arrays. Holographic projectors calibrated with a low hum. A collective murmur rolled through the chamber. The standard evasion trial, Relthor announced. Used for centuries. Predictable, measurable, and fair. Predictable. Measurable. Fair. Words humans rarely encountered together. A Krith warrior stepped forward first. His armored frame towered over the platform, confidence radiating from every ridge on his exoskeletal plates. When the trial began, he moved with brutal efficiency, shoving through some projectiles, dodging others, enduring the rest. 3 hits. 1 clean evasion. Polite applause. An Andari followed, fluid motions, delicate limbs, elegant arcs. But elegance alone wasn't enough. 5 hits. A Syroxian attempted next. His movements were frantic but calculated. 4 hits. One by one, delegates demonstrated their species' strengths and weaknesses. The chamber hummed with predictable outcomes and intellectual smugness. Relthor turned toward the humans. Would one of your guards care to participate? Elias didn't move. He simply looked at Sergeant Hale, who stepped forward with the quiet confidence of someone who had never needed to explain himself. Hale mounted the platform. No posture shift. No dramatic stance. No attempt to impress. Just presence. Relthor activated the first sequence. A single glowing marker shot forward, fast, but not dangerously so. Hale leaned almost imperceptibly to the left. The marker passed within the space his shoulder had occupied a fraction of a second earlier. The chamber quieted. Sequence 2 launched, 3 markers in quick succession. Hale didn't dodge. He flowed. His foot slid, knee bent, torso angled, and the trio of projectiles slipped by him as though following a choreographed routine he had practiced 1,000 times. Delegates sat forward. Level 3 engaged. Now the markers came from multiple angles, sharp, randomized, unforgiving. Hale adjusted mid-step, pivoting around one, weaving under another, letting a third skim harmlessly past his collar. His expression never changed. It wasn't effort. It was familiarity. By level 4, the platform erupted in a storm of movement, 14 markers, blinding speed, overlapping trajectories. Hale's reaction wasn't athletic. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even particularly beautiful. It was efficient. Minimal motion. Perfect timing. Absolute calm. He finished the entire sequence without a single hit. 0. Silence. Not the respectful kind. Not the uncertain kind. The stunned kind. Relthor's frill flattened in disbelief. A Trelivian scribe whispered, "He should not have been able to avoid the angle vector on cycle 6. The Andari scientist murmured, "He predicted the randomization before the sensors changed direction." Even the Krith warrior shifted with new interest. Elias spoke gently. "As I said, they don't need weapons." Relthor could only stare. "Explain this," Relthor finally said, voice thin. Elias remained seated, posture relaxed. "With pleasure." He looked at the hologram above the platform. "Your trial models movement patterns, linear threat vectors, fixed intervals, predictable timing. Humans don't train for predictable environments." The Andari scientist's crest flickered. "Yes, you implied early environmental instability." Elias nodded. "Exactly. Human development begins in chaos." Before Relthor could protest, Elias continued calmly. "Our children learn to dodge moving objects before they fully understand language. Balls. Toys. Shoes. Occasionally food." A horrified Syroxian chittered. Hale added from the platform, "Also siblings. Usually siblings." Elias went on. "We run, climb, jump, roll, and fall from heights we absolutely shouldn't. Our early games involve speed, unpredictability, and competitive aggression." The Krith warrior rumbled approvingly. "Training rights." "No," Elias corrected softly. "Recess." Confusion rippled through the tears. Elias continued with quiet clarity. "We throw objects at each other for sport. We race across uneven terrain. We slide down metal structures hot enough to burn skin. We leap between moving surfaces. We balance on narrow beams. We jump fences, dodge bicycles, chase one another at full sprint, and collide at high velocity, voluntarily." The Andari scientist scribbled notes, frantically. "You expose your offspring to such danger?" Relthor asked, stunned. "We call it playing outside," Elias replied. He lifted one hand lightly. "Then adulthood adds more complexity, parkour, martial arts, competitive sports, dance forms that demand precision, urban running, survival training, emergency drills, obstacle courses, and workplaces where things go wrong in ways no simulation predicts." Delegates exchanged horrified looks. "And," Elias added, "we learn to read movement subconsciously, tiny shifts in posture, weight distribution, eye focus. We predict momentum by instinct." Hale crossed his arms. "Also dodgeballs. Never underestimate dodgeball." Rowan, the second guard, nodded seriously. "Those things teach fear." Relthor stared. "So your species' reflexes are shaped by constant micro-threats?" Elias smiled quietly. "Constancy is the threat." The Andari scientist sat back, crest glowing bright yellow. "Of course. They refine anticipatory neural pathways through unintentionally hazardous repetition." Relthor sagged, overwhelmed. Your species is self-escalating. Not intentionally, Elias said. It just happens whenever humans leave the house. The chamber reacted in a mix of awe and existential dread. 3 months passed. By then, the council had reluctantly updated footnotes on human behavioral variability, though the revisions were largely theoretical. Reality arrived before theory could catch up. A violent tremor shook Varan Station, sharp enough to rattle fixtures, powerful enough to knock delegates from their seats. Emergency sirens blared in red spirals across every holoscreen. A voice crackled over the intercom. Catastrophic failure in Ring C. Hull breach expanding. Bulkhead controls unresponsive. Panic erupted instantly. A Syroxian slipped on the vibrating floor, antennae flailing. An Andari clutched a railing, crest flashing fear blue. A Troluvian dropped a datapad and scrambled uselessly at an offline console. The deck pitched sideways as gravity flickered. Elias stood. His guards moved before the room processed the motion. Hail, Elias said. On it, Hale replied, sprinting toward collapsing equipment. Rowan. Already moving, Rowan answered, leaping over a dislodged panel. While the chamber dissolved into chaos, the humans operated with eerie calm. A gash tore open in the far corridor, air venting with a roar. A Krith warrior was pinned beneath a fallen support beam. Hale reached him first. One motion, brace, lift, pivot. The beam shifted enough for the warrior to crawl free. Rowan dragged 2 Syroxians away from the breach, kicking a malfunctioning hatch until the emergency seal hissed into place. Elias bypassed the frozen console, hands moving with precise familiarity. Pressure locks misaligned, he muttered. Bulkheads are trying to seal out of sequence. Relthor stumbled beside him. How do you know this? Because, Elias answered calmly. Earth has buildings older than your station that do this every winter during electrical storms. He rerouted the circuits manually. Sparks. A jolt of flickering light. Warning icons vanished from red to amber. Hale! Elias called. Clear! Hale yelled back. Rowan! Good! Elias hit the override switch. Bang, bang, bang. Bulkheads slammed into place down the corridor, sealing the breach in perfect order. The roar of decompression faded. The station steadied. Gravity normalized. Breathing returned. Delegates collapsed where they stood, relieved, shaking. The humans stayed on their feet, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Minutes later, the chamber was a mosaic of rattled delegates and scattered debris. Relief teams rushed past, but the immediate crisis had already been contained by the very species the Council had deemed fragile. Relthor approached Elias with slow, humbled steps. His mantle hung low. Representative Mercer, your conduct was extraordinary. Elias wiped dust from his sleeve. We acted as needed. Relthor exhaled hard. Your guards reacted before the alarms finished sounding. Hale shrugged. We grew up with fire drills. Rowan added. And earthquakes. And floods. And surprise power cuts. And exploding microwaves. The Andari scientist approached, crest glowing bright with respect. Your predictive reflexes, they functioned as if you had trained specifically for this scenario. Elias shook his head gently. Not for this scenario. For the idea that scenarios don't behave. Delegates from 12 species gathered around, Syroxians, Krith, Andari, Troluvian, all humbled, all newly aware of the quiet threat wrapped inside human composure. Relthor swallowed his pride. Would your species be willing to update our emergency protocols? For all member civilizations? Elias inclined his head. We would be honored. Relthor looked between the humans, calm, steady, deceptively ordinary, and finally understood. The humans had walked into every meeting unarmed not because they were unprepared, but because they had lived their entire lives prepared. The chamber eventually emptied, leaving only scattered datapads, overturned seats, and the faint metallic smell of recently sealed bulkheads. Relief crews murmured among themselves, still glancing toward the humans, as if trying to reconcile what they'd witnessed with everything they'd been taught. Elias collected his papers without hurry. Hale and Rowan waited nearby, relaxed but alert in that effortless way humans carried, like people who didn't expect trouble, yet were always ready to meet it. Relthor lingered at the threshold of the hall. His mantle, normally stiff with certainty, hung low in thoughtful humility. "Representative Mercer," he said quietly, "I now understand why your guards bring no weapons to these meetings." Elias paused, offering a courteous, almost gentle look. "Do you?" Relthor nodded slowly. "Yes. You function under conditions no model accounts for. Tools are optional to a species trained by unpredictability." Elias considered this, then stepped past him, hands clasped behind his back. "They're useful," he said. "But when everything fails, when nothing behaves, humans don't look for weapons." Relthor tilted his head. "Then what do you rely on?" Elias stopped just long enough for the words to land with quiet certainty. "Everything that's already tried to kill us." He walked on. And for the first time in the Council's long history, the archivist understood. Humans weren't unarmed. They were simply prepared.